Hello, hello, hello. Hi,
Hi,
how are you?
I am great. How are you?
I'm good too. So, this is the Homegrown Podcast, recording for Illinois Tech, and I'm happy that we're finally doing this.
Yay, thank you so much for inviting me on.
Thank you. Before I start, do you know the first time I heard about you?
Oh my gosh. No, but I'm excited to hear. I know maybe it wasn't when we first met in person.
No. So, Nick,
Yes.
professor, sent us something that you did. I think it was a PDF of, questions and things about immigration.
Oh,
For
yeah.
students.
Yeah.
That was I think in 2022.
Yeah.
2023. Huh. And then I went to follow you on Instagram and everything, so I put a face to the person.
Nice.
And I kept seeing a lot of the things. I think I'll sign up to your newsletter.
Yeah.
Something. And then eventually met you at
We met in person.
Yeah. 1871. Oh, M-Hub.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
The Chicago Innovation event.
I also have to see you because I'm like, there she is. And the funny part was I left right after I met you because I had to go back and then do something. So I came, I spent 10 minutes, spoke to you, left. But then it was really cool because even though we spent a very short time, you did something incredible. You saw the magazine and then you told me that you had a friend who was into the magazine and then you did the intro. We actually had a call.
Yeah.
She was awesome, gave me a lot of advice, so thank you for that.
Oh my gosh, you're so welcome. It's great to be able to, pay some of the kindness that I've received forward in a little way. And I think, we're always so busy running from event to an event. I think you can just take that little extra minute. It's all it really takes to make an intro for someone that might be helpful. So I'm so happy that it was helpful.
Thank you. And you're here again today, so
yay, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Okay, now let's start. This interview is about you, so I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. Are you ready? Okay.
I'm ready.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Just where you were born, how you grew up, and then your journey from Dublin, Ireland to Chicago.
Yeah. So grew up in Dublin from a pretty big extended family and finished high school, went to study law in Ireland. Outside the US you can go straight into studying law or medicine and without having to do a 4-year kind of general education. So that's what I did. And it was during that program studying law, my bachelor's, that I got an opportunity to come to Chicago as part of an exchange through my University College Dublin, and it kind of changed, it changed the whole trajectory of my life getting that opportunity. But yeah, I grew up in Dublin, never imagined moving to the US. I wasn't one of these people. I feel like some people grow up and they're like, I want to move to America. That wasn't me. I was it just kind of happened in a way that I just got this amazing opportunity and I haven't looked back since. But it certainly wasn't something that I imagined doing when I was growing up.
Huh. And how did you feel like when you came to Chicago, and then how do you end up deciding who's where you're going to stay?
Yeah. I mean, I think, it's important that we frame this in the context of Chicago, right? I am a white Irish immigrant coming to one of the most Irish cities. So I got a welcome that I felt like every second person was like, I'm Irish, And I felt very aware even then of this Irish immigrant privilege is what I think, right? So I think when I say what my story was like, it's kind of framed in that context that I came to a city where, they dye the river green for St. Patrick's Day. They, everybody's everything's named Irish, and there's so many people in government and judges and lawyers. And so I felt very welcome and I felt very privileged because of, I think, being Irish. And I always kind of thought okay, well, does everybody get this welcome? Not sure, right? And I don't think that is the case. And so it kind of, I was always aware of the fact that I was benefiting from generations of immigrants who had come before as well.
Okay. That's true, because I remember like even before moving to Chicago, when I saw like videos of them dyeing the water green, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be so cool.
Yeah.
And then the very first time it happened, I went, I'm like, there's so many people. I'm like, all these people Irish.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh my goodness, Chicago is. I don't know. It's hard to describe Chicago because there will be a lot of like Latino festivals.
Yeah.
And there's Irish festivals, like African festival, like so many cultures here
Right.
in Chicago. It's just awesome.
Yeah, it's great. And I mean, it's great. But I think, you know, part of like my job as an advocate as well is to like advocate for other people and to kind of make people realize that the welcome that I got coming to this very Irish city, that everybody deserves to feel that welcome. And I think sometimes we need to kind of point it out and think about it. And I think sometimes people kind of don't realize it, or maybe kind of forget it. So, you know, it's one of the things that I always try to do.
Okay. And what drew you specifically to immigration law? And did any of your personal experiences, help you with that, or just?
So I tell this story because I think it can maybe help people like picture the kid that I was growing up. My dad had a nickname for me growing up from when I was probably like pretty young. I would say maybe 8, 9, 10, like young enough. So my dad used to call me Save the Whales. We would always like sit and chat, and I was always like talking about the environment or like the traveling community in Ireland and the rights of them, or union workers. And so it was just like I was always being the little advocate for like some kind of social justice cause. So my dad would call me Save the Whale. So that was like my nickname, obviously fun and jest, right? And so that is really, I think, descriptive of me. And so I imagined that I would do something social, like justice, environmental, something kind of like that. And then it was actually so I guess the tiny backstory was that I moved here for a year to go to law school on an exchange program at DePaul. I went back to Ireland, graduated with my law degree, and then came back out. And that's when I went to Kent to do my Juris Doctor at Chicago, Kent, which is the law school of Illinois Tech. So it was during that program that I found immigration, and I saw it as a class on the list, and I thought, okay, that's kind of interesting, right? It was never an option in Ireland, and immigration is not like the way we talk about immigration now, and even the practice of immigration law, the way it's all over the news all the time, like it wasn't that way 20 years ago. So I hadn't really thought of it as something, to really focus in on. So when I saw it as a class, I thought that it would be interesting. I thought that it was kind of, scratching that like save the whale itch. I felt like I could relate to it. So I just signed up not really knowing what to expect. And I just feel like instantly I felt like I had found my calling, and I felt very, very fortunate because Chicago Kent as a law school had multiple immigration classes and multiple immigration clinics. So while I was in law school, I got to work in 2 different immigration practice settings through the law school, which really gave me an opportunity to see what it would be like in the practice of immigration law. And I think that that's a great opportunity anytime either law students or college students or no matter what you're studying, if you get a chance to see the actual reality of it versus just, the theory in the book, it lets you have that kind of bird's eye view into what a day, not that every day is the same, but it just gives you like a little window into it. So that was my kind of, I guess, dipping my toe in the immigration pond.
Okay. And you dipped your toe, and at what point did you say, you know what, let me just make the full jump and then go into like you starting your own business and then starting McEntee Law?
Yeah, started with the toe and then dived straight in. So I felt like this was the area that I wanted to work in almost straight away, from doing those clinics. And then when I finished law school, I took the bar exam. I started working for a very high volume immigration practice. And I worked there for a few years and got amazing training because the type of like platform that they had was all online. It was just exposure to a lot of different issues all the time. Like someone had explained that like 1 year in a practice there was equivalent to maybe like 8 years in a typical immigration firm. So within a short period of time, I got really in-depth training. So after a while, I felt like I wanted to, I just had this idea of the type of firm that I would want to create if I had that opportunity. And it's about, you know, clients and the casework and all that, but it was also about the culture of the firm and the team and, you know, those types of things that I thought, you know, if I was able to design something that, you know, here we are. So, yeah.
I'm sure you made your father proud.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I think he is.
And when you're starting, did you face any challenges? And can you share some of the challenges with us?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little naive to think that you just like open up your firm and your phone starts ringing off the hook, right? That obviously doesn't happen. And I think in law school, right, we're not necessarily taught how to run a law firm. We're taught how to be lawyers. But there's a lot of like business aspects to it. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. My mum and dad had like, you know, small businesses that they were entrepreneurs. And so I got to kind of see some of those things and learn some things from them, obviously hard work and, you know, determination and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think there were challenges from, you know, where do I get clients from to like tech stuff, right? And I think things have changed. I feel I sound so old and I'm like, back in my day, you know, things have changed, but like there's a lot more tech at our fingertips. There's a lot more information. There's a lot more like systems and things like that I didn't necessarily have access to then. And for years it was just me on my own. And then my brother came out to join me and he's now a partner in the firm, and kind of gradually we started adding staff, and now we're up to a team of close to 20 staff members, and they're all amazing. And we had our team meeting this morning and I could see all the little, you know, the Zoom like squares, and I was like, oh my gosh, these people are amazing, and we're all here together, you know, really working towards the same cause, and they all support our clients and each other, and it's just makes me so proud. We just had somebody, you know, a new person start today, and getting them to see the team, you know, that we've all built together is something that makes me really proud.
Thanks, and I have to commend your team because they helped set this thing up. And when I came into it, I wasn't expecting any of this, and they've done an amazing job. So you have a
yay! Shout out to them. Yeah, to Liz and Melly.
Okay, now your firm handles a lot of like immigration cases, both individual and then companies. Can you tell us some like stories about some cases, some memorable cases that you've worked on?
Let me think. I mean, there's been a lot of different types of cases, right? And I see I have my children's book here. Some of the stories in here are actual client stories. So I'm thinking of Yulia, who is a Russian artist client in here. So getting to help her like stay on following her. This is her actual artwork that was here, and getting to help her stay to be able to like have the freedom to like paint and express herself without like fear, you know, of like censorship or worse. You know, helping families stay or come and be reunited is something that's really special. We did some pro bono cases during the Muslim ban, where we were able to get our clients visas issued after lawsuits. We helped some clients when they were fleeing Afghanistan. You know, so there's so many like different types of cases. And I think for us getting to see, you know, like some of our clients are on social media, you know, influencers, content creators, things like that, and getting to like, they're the ones that we can really are very visible once they get their visa. We can kind of see the opportunities that they have, you know. So I'm like following one of our fitness influencer clients in LA, and she's doing all these incredible things, and it's like, oh my gosh. So I think behind every like case win is somebody's life that, you know, is just changed, I think, so much for the better because of immigration. And it's really special that we get to play just, you know, a part in that.
I'm happy that you talk about that because I think you really have passion for what you do, and getting to see what like your work does and in the life that changes. I think that's cool. And I was going to ask you about the book, but since you've authored 2 books, right? But I'm particularly interested about like this book, Our American Dream. What inspired you to write this book, and how did you come up with this?
So, okay, I think the start of this was during the Trump administration, being a mom to two young kids, seeing some pretty horrendous stuff on the news about what was happening with immigration, like the family separation, where children were being ripped from their parents' arms, and all this like talk of mass deportation, just like dehumanization of immigrants. And I'm watching this thinking, like, this is not normal. This is not okay. It's our kids are watching. Like, how can we explain some of this to them when it's just very hard to even understand ourselves? And I felt like I was probably in the best position to be able to explain it, given the type of work that I do. And I still was really, I just couldn't find the words. And then I just thought, this didn't happen overnight. It wasn't really just this change in president, right? There's been this dehumanization of immigrants for such a long time, and language is very powerful, and like, just like storytelling, and we can use that for the positive as well as the negative. So I thought, again, feeling very privileged and feeling like I get to see all these incredible immigration stories, like I just mentioned to you, and I just was like, I wish other people could kind of see some of them. Because immigrants are not other, it's not like them and us, right? It's like we're all here together, and that's the beauty of America. So I thought, what if I could like figure out a way to put all these together in a book for kids? And that's kind of how it started. And then I started to think about the different characters, the different immigration stories that I would share. And and it resulted in the book. And there's, each one is really based on either an actual client or a friend or an immigration story that I know of. And yeah, it's something that makes me really like proud and happy to be able to read this book to kids and to talk to them about immigration, to go into schools and say, share these immigration stories and kind of see the way kids can connect with the different immigrants. Like, one of the kids is like, wants to come here for soccer. There's another, family who adopted a baby that's based on my sister-in-law. So there's all these different stories, and I think that we have more common ground than people think, and I think we need to just find that like commonality and the humanity in it. So yeah, that's the story behind Our American Dream.
That's great. And I don't know how you feel about the political landscape right now with all like these presidents trying to. How do you feel about presidents trying to use immigration to kind of like get votes? And do you think that it's something that needs to not be politicized, or how do we go about it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that we, for too long, have seen immigrants as used as like political, kind of pawns, really. When you think about like governors, like shipping people around the country, it's like illegal, right? They're like almost trafficking people around without any consent. They're just put on buses and they're using it for political gain, which is just disgusting. And I think the majority of Americans are in favor of, kind of common sense immigration reform. And I think that there seems to be just a big disconnect between what the majority of Americans want and believe is right, and then kind of, extremism, really. So I don't think it's right. I also think, that there's a lot of hypocrisy. I just heard recently that Trump was saying that he wants to give the green cards to graduates. Yes, and I was like, wow, let's talk about what you actually did during your administration. Let's talk about the travel bans on students. Let's talk about trying to deport hundreds of thousands of students in the pandemic because their classes went online. Like, we're judging people by their actions and not by their words. And when we look at the actions of the prior administration, they were so anti-immigrant. So all of a sudden there's like a revelation that like international students are really good and we should try and keep them. It's ridiculous. And it's just like, it's people, I think, are being used as pawns. Lies are being told. People are trying to use immigration to their advantage, and it's not right. And I don't think it's what the majority of Americans are in favor of.
I agree. And you mentioned the travel ban. You've been like a vocal advocate against the travel ban and other immigration policies. Can you share some experiences with these advocacy that you did?
Yeah. I mean, anytime I think about the travel ban, I just kind of like get brought straight back to like that first day at O'Hare Airport, and I just, that was a couple of days into the Trump administration, and I mean, things went really from bad to worse there with that. And I think, you know, on the one hand, it really like shook us all to our core as immigration lawyers, but on the other hand, I've really never been more proud to be in this field. Like, we were able to mobilize, we were able to strategize, we were able to figure out, you know, technology, listservs, you know, litigation, right? We used all the tools that we had, media, other advocacy, congressional. I mean, if you want anybody to have your back, it's a group like of immigration, it's like thousands of immigration lawyers. Like, that's who you want to be rooting for you and to be working for you, because I mean, I've just seriously never been more proud of our bar and of our bar association, AILA, which is the American Immigration Lawyers Association, and just to see, you know, the tools and the support and just the solidarity. And like, it's just like, it's very hard to practice immigration without that type of support. And now we see there's people who were sitting there at home watching the news and seeing us on TV and going like, I want to go to law school to do that. And I'm like, that makes me so proud that I know that there's people in law school today that saw, you know, the stuff that we were doing and decided to become an immigration lawyer because of it. So yeah, we've certainly had a ton of you know, curveballs, and with the Biden administration too, right? It's not like just because, you know, we're immigration lawyers means we're going to support everything that one administration is going to do versus the other. I think, you know, the idea is that we're able to like speak out if something's right or wrong, regardless of the administration. We're not going to give anybody a free pass just because they're from one party or another.
Cool. Now, what advice or what would you tell a law student right now listening to you, or a law professional trying to go into immigration law?
Okay, I guess the first thing I would say is that it's not the easiest area of law to work in, right? And I think being a lawyer is probably not easy, no matter, you know, it's like there's probably like easier, right, jobs, but it is so rewarding. And I think just knowing that sense of community that we have with each other and being able to really like know that you're making a difference in people's lives is something that I think really unites us. It unites like everybody on our team, not just the lawyers, right, but every person on our team is very, you know, mission driven, and we know what we're here to do, and we want to, you know, like our marketing team, like make sure that we're able to like, you know, kind of share what we do with people. We, you know, from Anna as our client coordinator, like every single person on the team is so aligned with that. And so I think it's an extremely rewarding job. You're not going to win every case. You're not going to have all good days, but I think you surround yourself with people that, you know, are aligned with you and that can support you during the hard times and, you know, and the not so hard times. And then you have to be optimistic. That's one of our core values in the firm. I think it is, you know, it's almost like a mandatory quality if you want to work in the field, because you get thrown a lot of stuff and you need to just believe that things can be better and then try to work to make them better.
Great. And what advice would you also give current immigrants right now in America trying to navigate this complex immigration system and all the complexity that comes with that, and then also considering the political landscape? Like, what do you tell somebody trying to navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that knowing that, you know, we're with you and it's not easy, right? And I think that we're also in the age of like information overload, which I think is like can be good and bad, but it seems like there's just like stuff coming at people from all different platforms, and, you know, newsletters and media and social media, and so there's just like a lot of stuff coming at you. I think that you need to take some time to like kind of weed through that. You know, consider the source. You want to get your information from reliable sources. Obviously, you know, do your research online, you know, sure, but don't be relying on someone's TikTok video as being like direct advice to you, right? And not to diss TikTok, it's a great platform to get some info out there, but it shouldn't be construed as like direct legal advice for people. I think that I would honestly just say a bit of a warning, right? Anytime we saw the Biden administration issued some executive actions last week, I'm not sure when this will air, but recently in relation to undocumented spouses of US citizens and DACA holders and other dreamers, people who have college degrees. So anytime there's some like policy like that, unfortunately, there can be people that can try to exploit that and like prey on that. So I would just make sure that you, if you're getting legal advice, it's from an attorney or an accredited representative who is like officially, you know, accredited through the Board of Immigration. But so just kind of make sure you don't end up falling victim to some of these immigration scams that unfortunately can be out there. So it's sad to think that people would prey on, you know, people in that type of situation, but unfortunately it can happen. So just be really careful about the advice that you're giving or that you're taking. And yeah, so hopefully those tips will be helpful to people.
Okay, thank you. And we'll get a little bit personal here. How do you balance your successful career and being a mother of two? What are the challenges and how do you manage the work-life balance?
Oh, I know, the infamous like work-life balance. So actually one of the things that we put in our core values was this idea of like harmony, right? So it's like we thought it would kind of tie into our work in music, and instead of balance, like this idea of like harmony. I mean, I think it's hard to be a working parent, of course. We have a lot of working parents on the team, though, and I think that being in a position to create policies that support working parents is something that I really am proud of. And it was something like going back to what I said at the start, if I was able to create a firm, what are the things that I would want to make sure that it you know, it had, and it was like flexible work arrangements that support working parents. You know, and just value people's time outside of work, right? Just because you're not a parent doesn't mean that your time, you know, there's no hierarchy on whose time is more valuable, right? So I think it's being able to create those policies that can support like working parents. But yeah, my kids are amazing. They're now 10 and a half, the halves are important, and 8 and a half. And they're just, I mean, I feel like my son was a baby, like a brand new baby when the Trump administration started. And so, I mean, when I think of his throughout the course of like his first few years, how kind of chaotic that was, I think it was something that we all have learned to, hopefully in our team and in as a bar, to take care of ourselves. And that looks like different things for different people, but like access to therapy, making sure people are you know, these things that you hear about, it's something that we try to really like normalize in our firm. We have everybody gets access to this like therapy app that can connect in, and anyway, it's all confidential appointments that they can set up, and it's just like making sure that there's that type of like transparency and culture where people feel like that's a thing that they can do and should do if that's what they want, right? I think it's working in this field is tough, and we want to make sure that we have all those tools to support, you know, me and the rest of the team. So
school that you have the therapy side, because mental health is something that I think is something that we should talk about more.
Yeah.
And in all fields, because it happens every day. Like everybody needs that, and it's cool that you offer that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's like when people realize what, like, I think people have this idea that you just like lie down on a couch and tell me about your childhood, and it's like that's, I mean, maybe that is a part of it, but it's not the part that I know. It's more like helping you, giving you tools to like help you cope with certain things, or making you more aware of certain things. And I think it's just tools that I believe everybody you know, could use. So I definitely agree with you that it's so important, and it's something that we should all be talking about.
Cool. What's a typical day look like for Fiona?
That is funny because I'm like, I don't know. So it depends, right? I have some client consultations. I do like to post on social media, so I'll like try and do a LinkedIn post. I love using that platform to try to like share. So like this morning I shared a post about the ridiculous Trump administration like alleged policy to give green card graduates, I was like, wait a minute, what about all of this? So like I do that. It's like my wake up, have my coffee, and do my advocacy like in the morning, start the day. And then client calls, team meetings. You know, maybe if I'm lucky enough to have an interview like this. And just like keeping up to date on like different changes in immigration, connecting with our immigration community. You know, I have a great network of like women lawyers here in Chicago through the Women's Bar Association of Illinois. So sometimes there's events on, looking at, you know, over cases, doing strategy sessions with the team. So it's pretty varied, but I think it's, you know, expect the unexpected, I would say, which means your day is never boring, but also never quite predictable. So
I agree. So my sister's a lawyer, and it's so crazy when one day she'll tell me to like schedule an appointment because she kept forgetting to call me. I'm like,
with her to talk to.
Like, why do I need to schedule an appointment and talk to you? And then she was like, listen, I get busy sometimes. I don't even have time. So if it's not in the calendar, I'm gonna forget. I'm like,
oh, I love her.
No,
she is someone after my own heart. Yeah, exactly. We like that's. I mean, our lives are controlled by our calendars. So.
Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
Now, you've been involved in a lot of mentorship programs and I think incubators. Why do you think mentorship is important? And if there's anything you can share about like mentorship and how mentorship helped you, and then how you're able to help people mentorship, and why people need mentors?
Yeah, your questions are so good. This is a great question, and I think, I mean, what I want to do is try to like educate and like empower, especially like immigrants and immigrant founders, like let's say with mentorship and startups, right? I feel like I didn't necessarily have access to some of this info that I wish I would have had. So I try to get information to people early, right? Like the book, my ebook that you mentioned, right? That it was like question and answer, like in a way that I felt like hopefully was accessible for founders to try to get that info to them. Because I think that people can you know, especially with immigration, if you give yourself a runway and you really explore all the options, you're going to give yourself the best chance at like a successful outcome. The earlier you start and the more, you know, knowledge you have, that is like specific to your situation. So I love doing that for people. I also have, you know, I think people will tell us no all day long, right? We'll go through our lives where people will say you can't do that, or that's not going to work, or da da da. And I was told no. That like maybe someone was like, I don't know that you're going to be able to stay for following law school. You might not be able to like get someone to sponsor your visa, and people will tell you no. And then there will be people who will say, forget that. Let's see how we can get to the yes. And I want to say to people, you know, if I listened to that person who said no, I probably would have packed my bags like, you know, 17 years ago and gone back to Ireland. So like, don't listen to that person. There's other people like me and lots of other people that will say, let's work together. Let's see what we can do. And like, you can kind of see examples in other people of how they were able to navigate these things, whether it's immigration or like startup or, you know, lots of different fields where you feel like you're just hearing these no's, and so that's what I hope I can do for people as well, is to like let them hear the yes and let them see. And you can't guarantee it, but like to give them hope and to show them other options other than the no. So that's why I love working with founders, and I just know like how important immigrants are to the US, right? And so that's just like, I think one of the best parts of my job as well, getting to meet like so many amazing people.
I mean, what you do is amazing, and I'll say personally that ebook helped me a lot because, I mean, as much as I have a sister lawyer and I kind of like know a lot about law, immigration law is very specific.
Yeah.
And then there's so much information. Sometimes it's just really hard to figure out like what to do and where to go. But then the ebook kind of like helped me to know the kind of help that I can get. And so It was more like I knew what I wanted, and so I could go find somebody to help me or how to help my own self.
Yeah.
And then even in terms of planning what I was going to do with my education and my career, I kind of like had an idea of what existed and how I was going to do things leading up to that. So
that's great.
thank
I'm
you
so
for
happy
that.
to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like to narrow it down, to try to like see what's available, and then you can make informed decisions about what's best for you. And you can only do that if you have the information, right? So, oh, that makes me so happy to know that it was helpful.
Thank you. And it was great also knowing that you're an IIT Illinois Tech alum. And so that was like,
Yes,
cool.
very proud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about like Illinois Tech right now. How would you describe your time at Illinois Tech, Chicago Kent's Law, and that experience? And was there any classes or professors that helped you out in just that whole entire experience being in Kent's Law?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a great experience. Being right downtown. I mean, for me, it was like, oh my gosh, it's like, you know, right downtown. Like the setting is so cool. Yeah, you're like, oh, this is America. Like it feels like so American, right? In like the middle of all these like skyscrapers and like, you know, just really smart people. And I think like what was kind of unusual for me was hearing like such different viewpoints in law school. You know, in Ireland, we, like I say the story and I'll say again, like I thought my dad is conservative, right? But he's like Joe Biden kind of you know, like he's like that kind of. And to me, that was conservative. And then you get to hear other people's viewpoints and you just realize basically how big America is, how many different viewpoints there are. And it is like, kind of opens your mind to just the breadth of opinions, which you know, it's you're not going to agree with everybody, but I think we can have like how, and that's kind of what I feel like has been missing in the US in the past recent years. When I first moved here, I felt like you could really have conversations with people that you disagreed with about things like immigration or, you know, just different issues where, I don't know, it was just a different era in debate about different issues. And I think that we've kind of lost that recently, and I hope we get back to that, because we're not always going to agree, but I think if we can have a conversation where we're, you know, not demonizing people and where we're like actually talking about like facts. So got some of that in law school, but also the biggest thing was exposure to immigration, and I think it definitely changed the course of my career. My professors, any of my immigration professors, but my one professor who's still practicing immigration, Carolyn Schoenenberger, she's an immigration lawyer, but she was running the immigration clinic down in Pilsen. So she was just an amazing mentor and teacher to me, and got to like kind of show me the practical side of working as an immigration lawyer. She also allowed me to come to a citizenship interview with a client that I had prepared for the citizenship test. And she passed, and that was like a cool experience, like sitting there in the citizenship interview behind, and she had said, this is my law student, and they were okay with it and everything. But yeah, like I'll kind of never forget her kindness and mentorship, and it really, you know, convinced me that this was something that I wanted to do. And yeah, and she actually commented on a post that I just put up on LinkedIn, and she's still really active in our immigration lawyers community. So thanks, Professor.
Thanks, Professor.
Yeah.
I'll say it's really cool to have like professors who are involved in your life. Like I'm here because of my professor. And yeah, so that's like really cool in Illinois Tech, having these professors who care about you and offer you a lot like support beyond like what you study in class, and then also even if it's something that you really are passionate about, they offer all the support and resources. So that's really cool.
Yeah, and we were just at an event last week because we had our National Immigration Lawyer Conference was in Chicago, which was really cool that it was here. We had thousands of immigration lawyers from all over the US come to Chicago, which made me really proud, because normally, you know, the conferences are in different cities. You know, you don't really get the full city experience, but it was like in McCormick Place and people were everywhere. But Professor Carmona Victoria, she's the immigration professor now in the clinic in Kent, was at one of these events. It was like an awards event, and she brought some of her students there. And so, you know, it's that kind of stuff is still very much happening in Kent, and obviously in Illinois Tech. And so we're a little biased, but we also know that our professors are amazing. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
And with me being in the business school, it's nice to be in a building with lawyers. You can just go down there and like find any law students, except they'll tell you, I'm not a lawyer. Don't think so. I'm like, I don't care, you're still a lawyer.
Yeah, or it depends, right?
Yeah. It's really cool to be surrounded by lawyers.
Oh, that's great.
You spoke about like the conference being in Chicago, which is amazing because you obviously live in Chicago, you love Chicago.
Yeah.
Are there like any initiatives that you particularly care about happening in the city that you're involved in or part of?
You know, the city has, I feel like we have such an amazing like grassroots advocacy organization, you know, kind of infrastructure here in Chicago. And that's also what got me into the advocacy side of immigration when I first moved here. Congressman Luis Gutierrez was having these big immigration rallies in like churches and meetings, and it was just like so much hope for like immigration reform and all these marches and all that stuff is still happening. And we have just like a phenomenal group of advocates here, everything from, you know, ISER, which is the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights. We have the NIJC, the National Immigrant Justice Centre. They just took a big case to the Supreme Court. You know, there's like a lot of like different advocates doing different kind of community work. Also, one thing that we are like super, super proud of is the immigration community's response to the busing of migrants. The Resurrection Project set up pro bono immigration clinics that were staffed and that had a partnership with the federal government where the USCIS came in and were able to issue receipts then and there for people, take biometrics, basically on the spot receipt applications and get things filed. It was like a brand new way of doing things in response to you know, a crisis really, and it was really transformational for people because they could get their work permits in a much faster way. They could work, and that's really what they want to do. No one's here to, you know, like take the non-existent welfare here, right? People are here to work hard, and there's employers that have jobs that need to be filled, and it's like, I think we just need to really stop viewing immigration as like a negative and realize that this is a positive thing, and it's always been a positive thing. But Chicago has anyway just like an amazing community of just phenomenal like advocates, and it's something that I was like super proud. And we just have really cool things to do. Like we went on the boat tour. We went on to a comedy night where like immigration lawyers doing like improv was hilarious. They did some blues stuff. A friend of mine, Dave Herrero, he's an amazing blues musician. He performed as part of one of the events. And so yeah, they're just like proud to show off the city to people. And I think from what I'm hearing, a lot of people are saying it was the best AILA conference that they've been to. So
you must really love Chicago. Have you ever thought about living in Chicago? Please don't answer that. No, I don't want to know. If you even want to try like leave, please don't tell me.
No. I do. I love Chicago, and Chicago's been very good to me, and so yeah.
So talking about like the future, right? What are your goals for McEntee Law Group in the next 5 years, and what new initiatives are you really excited about?
Okay, I would say for us the most pressing thing that's on my mind right now is what's going to happen in the election, right? Because I know, big sigh, for deep breathing techniques, right? It's because that is going to really be important in our work, right? Depending on what way things happen there. I think I'm going to make sure that between now and then that I do a lot of advocacy that I've been doing, where I think it's just important that people get information that is true and accurate. You know, I don't want somebody claiming that they're going to do one thing when everything they did in the past shows the absolute opposite. I think a lot of times we end up in a very reactive state in the media where we're reacting to different things and we don't really get an opportunity to proactively put out some stuff. So one of the things that we've tried to do is like I've written a few op-eds that have been published to try to like proactively put forth some information. So to encourage people to do that, and anybody can do this. Like if you see a piece of news in the newspaper, you can write in a letter to the editor to publish your thoughts on that, right? If you see something that you're like, that's either you agree with it or you do not agree with it, you can do that. And I think we all have a voice here, and we can learn how to like use our voice, because other people are using theirs, and we need to make sure that we're using ours too. So for the firm, I don't really know. We're kind of taking it like it's almost like week by week, because we just don't know. There's been some new amazing policy changes that have just happened. So we're going to see how they play out over the summer. As far as the firm goes, I mean, I'm just so proud of our team. I feel like I gush with pride every time. It's like, I have like 20 children right in the firm, but it's just like, the firm is like my third baby. And to just see the people that are in it just makes me so proud. And it's like how much they care about our clients and each other. And so I think we're just going to continue to make sure that we have amazing people on the team. And, of course, we're looking into all sorts of like technology, and I feel like everybody's talking about AI and all, obviously in a safe and secure manner. But I think, the legal profession is probably going to change a little bit, and we have to be proactive and aware of it. So, but it's an exciting time for sure.
Talking about technology, did you see when ChatGPT came in and they said ChatGPT passed like the bar exam?
Oh, yeah.
Bar exam, and people are like, you don't even need to hire a lawyer again. I'm like, nah.
Yeah, not a substitute for a lawyer. I mean, I actually was doing a presentation to a group of international students, and so President Biden issued an executive order on AI, right? It was October 30th of last year. It sounds like I'm like a whiz with dates, but I just remember that date specifically because it was just before Halloween, and I wrote a blog post on it. But I fed the order into ChatGPT, and I asked ChatGPT to summarize the immigration provisions of the order, and there was like a whole section on it, and it basically was like, there are no immigration provisions in this order. And so I was like, AI fail, right? So it's like, you just need to be aware of the limits of these tools, right? And I think sometimes, I think we can use them in a way that makes our lives like, more just easier, right? You can sometimes I use it to like do drafts of like a blog post or to like refine a blog post or things like this. But you obviously can't use any confidential information, can't put any of that stuff in it. I think as lawyers we have like our ethical duties extends to the whole team. But yeah, it's not a substitute for a lawyer, goes without saying.
That's true, because we also study like some ethics about AI, because I think that's where it comes in, where you don't really know what defines like being good and not being good, and how you use AI and not. But then I hope we figure it out. It's still new.
Yeah.
We're still seeing, it's still improving, but I don't know. I hope they don't. I don't know. I just hope we kind of like use AI in the right way.
Yeah. For good and not for evil. I think that we're all, no matter what you do though, it's going to be a part of people's jobs at some point. I mean, you can do really fun and helpful things. I'm going on a road trip, and I was like, hey, help me plan a road trip. Or I was like, oh, one of the things I was thinking about, I was like, I want my kids to just have some preliminary like use. I was like, hey, can you come up with like how can kids, like, it's 6 week schedule to like have, just little things, like you can use it for fun stuff as well. And like, maybe that's not fun for other people, but like planning road trips, planning whatever, you can use it for personal things outside of work as well. But I just feel like it's going to be a part of everyone's day to day to a certain extent.
For sure. Now, I want to ask you this, one of our final questions. With all these changes in immigration law and all these people, president talking about these things, and like you said, the law firm has to stay positive, right? You always stay positive.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see the landscape of U.S. immigration law evolving, and what challenges are you trying to improve, and what particularly are you excited about with the immigration laws?
So, okay, the biggest thing that I think people need to know about immigration is that the laws, like that Congress passes, haven't really changed in over 30 years. So all these changes that we see are happening from the president, right? In the executive, they're passing policy changes. but the actual laws have not been changed by Congress in so long. So if we think about DACA, right, which is deferred action, that like protection from deportation, so that was done as you know, I would say a measure because Congress didn't pass the DREAM Act, right? It was using the existing authority to kind of create some options, and we've seen that, right? But those things can be reversed by subsequent administrations, and this is why we see this back and forth. Oh, this thing is done by the Obama administration, then the Trump administration comes in and tries to block it. The Biden administration comes and tries to reinstate it, and this is what's happening. And then in the middle, there's people's lives. So, you know, that's not a way to run a country, right? It's not a way for people to have to live, because Congress cannot seem to find any kind of common ground. So what I really hope happens is that, you know, Congress just gets together and realizes that it is not right that we haven't had any new immigration laws in really 30 years. We need to sort it out. Like, other countries are creating startup visas. They're like modernizing their immigration options for healthcare workers. They're, you know, just like looking at all different types of immigration solutions. And then we are stuck in a 30-year time warp. So what I'm excited about is, again, going back to the optimism, I am hoping that at some point Congress realizes, okay, we need to get it together and like pass something. I'm also excited to see the rollout of the new Biden administration, the Biden and Harris administration's new executive actions that they just announced. It's kind of seeing some numbers about, I mean, for the first policy with spouses of, undocumented spouses of US citizens and stepchildren, like over 500,000 people could benefit from that. And then for Dreamers and other like DACA recipients, a lot of people could benefit from that as well. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how people's lives can be transformed by some of those policy changes. And then I think kind of bracing for the unknown to see what is going to happen, you know, in November.
I guess all we can do is to stay positive.
Yeah.
And then also with somebody like you and your team, you know, in the space, we know that, you know, something good will happen. And even if it doesn't happen, we still have Fiona and
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you like two final questions. This is a fun question.
Mm-hmm.
What's one thing about you that will surprise people listening, or even your team?
So this question, I realize how like uninteresting and like non-fun I am. I'm like, oh my gosh. And also how like transparent I am. I feel like I'm such an open book. I think like everybody knows like everything about me. So I'm always like, what is something fun or interesting that people don't know? I'm like, everybody knows everything about me. But one thing I think that I'm not sure if people know, I think I mentioned it earlier briefly, is that I'm from like a really big Irish family. So I have close to 60 first cousins. Yeah, my mom is like one of 11 kids and my dad's one of 8. So I have like a lot of cousins. One of my cousins in Ireland has 3 sets of twins. They're all boys. So we have like this massive extended family. And something that's really cool is that my dad's dad, so my grandfather, a lot of his siblings emigrated, some to Australia, some to America. So some of them went to San Francisco, and we recently just got connected to my dad's first cousins. And they are visiting Ireland this week, and they're actually meeting up with my family. My mom and dad are hosting them and all our like McEntee cousins, and they're coming from San Francisco, and it's just going to be like a big like family reunion, which is so exciting because yeah, it's my dad's first cousin, so very close relative that I don't know that he's ever met them, and so yeah, I'm excited for them all to meet. They're going to FaceTime me in tomorrow so I can join the party from here.
Well, I guess that's why technology is good, because you get to join the party without being there with technology. So.
Exactly. Unlike when I first moved here and it was like a phone card with minutes that you had to... I know, I'm so old.
And now this is a great segue to the last question.
Okay.
What advice would you give your younger self? If you had to say something to your younger self, what would you say?
I guess I would reiterate that don't listen to the no's. I think, you know what, I really found a group of people that were really here to support me. It was like women from the Women's Bar Association, like other lawyers and judges. I think that finding something that you're really passionate about, I think, is really important, because I feel like a lot of people realize this in the pandemic. I think people had like a kind of an awakening and just like a realization of like priorities, like what's important. And I think when you have a purpose in your job, you know, when you're really striving for something that is making a difference, and that can be different for everybody, but I think, you know, to not forget that is, you know, is something that I really feel like a lot of people are striving for. And I think if you can find something like that, it's going to serve you really well, and it will help you through the good days and the bad. So I don't know what else I would say to my younger self. Maybe travel a bit more before you have kids, because although now that our kids are a little bit older, we're getting to do that a bit more. But yeah, I think have fun and don't sweat the small stuff.
Don't sweat the small stuff. Great advice. Thank you. And if people want to reach out to you, how do they connect? How do they reach out to you? Email, socials?
Yeah, so the main email address for the firm is info@McEnteeLaw.com, McEnteelaw.com. We're on every platform imaginable. I have my own like social media. US Visa Lawyer is for a lot of my stuff, except for different on TikTok, and then the firm has a lot of different stuff as well. We also have a YouTube channel that has some great webinars and different resources. And yeah, I feel like there's a lot of ways that you can reach us, and we have a newsletter that I think is very helpful. So hopefully people can sign up for that on our website, which is McEnteeLaw.com.
Great. Thank you very much, Fiona.
Thank you.
And if you're listening, this is your host, Nana, from Illinois Tech, from the Homegrown Podcast. And thank you, Fiona, and being a lovely guest in your team. We'll surely connect again, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. I'm glad you're here. I hope you enjoyed it as well.
It was great fun. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.